Today we are going to start the topic drugs affecting ANS. ANS simply refers to autonomic nervous system. Autonomic nervous system. So we are starting pharmacology, and in pharmacology we're starting this topic drugs affecting ANS, autonomic nervous system. Now basically this topic is much diverse and vast, so we are going to divide it in 5 sections, and we are going to distribute in 5 sections, and we will discuss it in 5 sections. The first is overview of ANS. It is important to know about some surface information or take an overview of ANS to know the drugs better. And then we are going to discuss different type of agonist and antagonist, like cholinergic agonist, and then in the next section we will be discussing cholinergic antagonist, and then adrenergic agonist and adrenergic antagonist. So first of all, we must know what is autonomic nervous system. So autonomic nervous system basically refers to a part in nervous system that is responsible to regulate involuntary body functions, like involuntary body functions. All the involuntary body functions are regulated by autonomic nervous system, and it maintains the homeostasis. Okay. Now before diving deeper to the ANS pharmacology, we must first understand that what are the two systems that are taking or regulating different functions of the body. The first we all know is endocrine system. Endocrine system composed of blood hormones, and these blood hormones helps to produce response as they carry signals towards the target tissues via blood. Secondly, we have the nervous system, and nervous system is the system that involves transmission of nerve impulses. And these impulses are basically carried out or taken towards the effector organs with the help of nerve fibers, and those are known as neurons, right? As a result, the effector cells or effector region of the body, effector organs, produces response. Now let us discuss the autonomic drugs, which we will be discussing in ANS pharmacology. Now autonomic drugs are basically the drugs that provide therapeutic effects. They are either mimic the effect or the responses of the ANS or the functions of the ANS. They either mimic the effect, or they either, we can say, suppress or alter the functions. Suppress what? Functions of ANS. Right? So that's how autonomic drugs carry out their task. They either mimic the effect of or function of ANS, or they either alter or suppress the functions of ANS. Mimic refers to copy something, right? So these drugs either copy the function of the ANS or suppress the functions of the ANS. That's how these autonomic drugs work in the body. Now let us discuss the basic introduction to nervous system that everyone should know in order to understand the autonomic drugs. Now we all know what is nervous system. Nervous system basically comprised of two anatomical divisions, and we all know the first one is the CNS and the second one is the PNS. CNS refers to central nervous system, and PNS is the peripheral nervous system. CNS basically consists of brain and spinal cord, we all know, and PNS, which is known as peripheral nervous system, it basically consists of neurons. What type of neurons? Peripheral neurons. It simply means the neurons that are present at the periphery. Or simply, this means that the neurons that are located outside the brain and spinal cord, or you can simply say that the nerves that enter or leave the CNS, right? Now further, the PNS is classified into afferent and efferent neurons. Afferent neurons are basically the neurons that are responsible to carry information from periphery to CNS. These neurons carry information from periphery to CNS, which means that these are the sensory neurons that brings information from receptor organs or receptors towards the central nervous system, which means brain and spinal cord, right? Now the second one are the efferent neurons. You can remember efferent from the word exit, which means that these are the neurons that exit CNS, right? So these are the neurons that carry signals away from the brain and spinal cord to peripheral tissues, or you can say effector organs, right? Now let us draw the flow chart to understand the basic nervous system easily, right? So we have this nervous system, right? This nervous system is further classified into peripheral nervous system and central nervous system. Now central nervous system further composed of brain and spinal cord, whereas peripheral nervous system composed of afferent neurons and efferent neurons. Afferent neurons means sensory neurons and efferent means motor neurons. Now this section is further divided into two more subdivisions. The first one is ANS and the second one is somatic system. Right? We are getting to the point. We have to discuss the drugs of ANS, right? The drugs affecting ANS. So here we are coming to our point, right? So autonomic nervous system and somatic system. Somatic nervous system, you can also call it somatic nervous system. So autonomic nervous system is a type of system that is responsible for all the involuntary functions. And somatic nervous system is responsible for all the voluntary functions. Now ANS is further divided into enteric system, which is mainly the system of GIT, gastrointestinal tract, or which is also referred to as alimentary canal. Secondly, enteric system. Secondly, we have parasympathetic nervous system. And thirdly, we have sympathetic nervous system, which means that ANS is further divided into enteric system. ANS further control enteric system and parasympathetic nervous system and sympathetic nervous system. Now let me make the further divisions of the peripheral nervous system more understandable to you guys. Like it is further divided, peripheral nervous system is further divided into, as I already told you, that it is further divided into somatic nervous system and autonomic nervous system. So somatic nervous system is basically involved in voluntary actions, as I already told you, that all the voluntary actions and functions of the body, somatic system is involved in it. For example, let me give you an example of contraction of smooth muscles. Skeletal muscles. because we all know that among the three types of muscles, smooth muscles, cardiac muscles, and skeletal muscles, only skeletal muscles are voluntary in actions. So somatic nervous system controls the contraction of skeletal muscles. Moreover, when we talk about autonomic nervous system, so autonomic nervous system is responsible for involuntary control of body, okay, bodily functions, right? So it is also known as, like, other names for autonomic nervous system can be visceral or vegetative, or it is also known as involuntary nervous system. So that's extra information. So we're gonna remove it from over here. So let me give you a few examples of autonomic nervous system to make it understandable to you guys. Like, it controls the visceral smooth muscles, it controls the smooth muscles of the body, like the smooth muscles present in the visceral region of the body. Secondly, cardiac muscles. We all know that cardiac and smooth muscles are involuntary in their actions, which means we have no control over these two types of muscles. So obviously these are controlled by the autonomic nervous system. Moreover, vasculature. Vasculature is controlled by autonomic nervous system. Vasculature is basically a complex network of blood vessels, and that is distributed, or that simply distribute the blood throughout the body, and it also supply organs with oxygen and nutrients and remove waste products from different organs, right? So this is again controlled by autonomic nervous system. Moreover, exocrine glands and also autonomic nervous system control digestion. Digestion, we all know that it is not controlled by us, it is involuntary action, so it is obviously controlled by autonomic nervous system. And other examples are also like blood flow, cardiac output, and glandular secretions. So these are all the examples of autonomic nervous system. And to make this difference clear, I have the chart that helps you understand it easily. Like, somatic nervous system is used for voluntary control and conscious control, while autonomic nervous system is responsible for involuntary control, whereas the primary target for somatic nervous system are the skeletal muscles, and autonomic nervous system are smooth muscles and cardiac muscles and glands. And moreover, in somatic nervous system, a single neuron is involved, whereas in autonomic nervous system there are two neuron chains that are involved. We will discuss this further in detail in our next videos. And moreover, it does not possess any ganglion, while the synapse of the two neurons occur in ganglia between them, that is present in the synaptic cleft. Now the question is, what is ganglia? So let me clear ganglia to you all. Now, these ganglia are basically the neuronal cell bodies. These are the neuronal cell bodies, or the cell bodies of the neuron, and they are present outside the CNS and present exactly at the location where the synaptic transmission occurs. You can say synaptic cleft, right? So this is how it goes, and basically it is a two neuron chain. That's why it synapse in ganglia, right? The two neurons synapse in ganglia, right? So when it comes to ganglia, so this is the region where ganglia are present, and this is the synaptic cleft, right? So that's how there is synapse that occurs in autonomic nervous system. The synapse of somatic nervous system is simple and easy because there is a single neuron and there is no other ganglion, right? Thus, neuron synapse directly on the affected region or the effector organ or the effector cells. We are going to write some of the functions that are regulated by ANS, and why we are discussing the drugs that affect ANS in different sections and huge sections. Why are we doing that? Because obviously ANS has greater impact on the body and different functions of the body, and it regulates so many functions of the body. Some of them I'm mentioning over here, such as it controls the heart rate, right? It is the most important function of the body. Secondly, it controls the blood pressure. Moreover, it controls digestion, right? And It controls the respiration. Moreover, it also controls the glandular secretions, such as salivation and sweating. Moreover, it also controls urination and pupil size. Pupil size means constriction or dilation of the pupil. So these are the functions that are regulated by ANS, and that's how to regulate all these functions of the ANS. We use various kinds of drugs, and what are the impacts of the drugs on these functions, either to increase these functions or to decrease the functions. Just in order to regulate the functions, we use the drugs, and we observe the impact of different kind of drugs on ANS.